The worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach, and fitness expert, Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance. This is your chance where I sit down with today's tops in business, mindset, wellness, and success to help you master disruption and thrive.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon.
Welcome back to WholeCEO with Lisa G, where you bring you leaders who don't just talk about performance, they live it. Today's guest is a powerhouse in the world of sales and scaling revenue, the CEO of CEO Sales Strategies, the brains behind 960 million in revenue generation. He's built over 35 businesses, trained thousands of entrepreneurs, even served as the president of sales and training for Tony Robbins. And I'm such a fan. We talked about this off camera. He actually skyrocketed close rates by 143% and delivered a whopping 50% sales increase. I think I said that wrong, but anyhow, very impressive, Doug. He worked with giants like Intuit, CVS, Procter & Gamble. Now he's teaching companies how to close bigger deals, build elite commission-only teams, and dominate their sales. So if you're ready to dabble and stop dabbling and start dominating, this is your episode. Doug C. Brown, welcome to the show.
Hey, Lisa, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so grateful.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here and meet you. You're a wonderful person. And if I mangled anything in your intro, feel free to correct me. But I know we talked off camera a little bit about Tony Robbins and the big change that he's made in both of our lives. So let's dive in big. You helped Tony Robbins drive over 4,000% sales growth in 6 months. Is that the right number? And
Yeah,
what
it was in one product line on that 4,152%, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
I read those numbers and I was like, I want to know your moves. Like, what were your first moves to like drive revenue like that in sales?
So I look at when I work with companies or I work for companies or run sales teams, I'm always looking at metrics and math, right? And before anybody goes, oh, math, well, I'm not really that good at math, to be honest with you, but I'm good at looking at the metrics and figuring the math out. And the thing is so Tony had a company with a man named Chet Holmes who wrote a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine.
Right.
And it was called Business Breakthroughs International. And when I got there, I was a coach in the company, and I was doing so well, just outpacing all the other coaches that they came to me and they're like, listen, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy. You're like, my fourth month, I would think I sold $65,000 a month in coaching onward, and they were, and the average person wasn't even coming close to that in the company. So they wanted to know what I did. And so I did. And then they asked me, hey, well, I take a look at the coaching team, the presenters team, the sales team, and help out. And on the presenters team, they had a product set called Sales Mastery System, and it was really underperforming. It was a great product. They were selling about $86,000 a year of this product.
Right.
And I looked at it and I was like, there's something wrong here, because the product, I looked at all the metrics and I looked at all the lead flow that was coming in, and I'm like, it's just like you could clearly see that people weren't buying this product, even though the lead flow was there. So I do what I do. I call up everybody who didn't buy, and I said, hey, why aren't you buying? Right. And they said, well, the program we're being offered, we like, but we like the other program, but that's 4,000 something dollars. We don't want to spend that kind of money. We just want to increase our sales. And I said,
Right.
well, what would it take? And they said, we just need help. We need somebody to talk to. The program was more self-paced.
Right.
So I went back and I retooled the program. Didn't change the program, the content. The content was amazing, Lisa. All
Right.
I did is I added 6 weeks of group coaching onto that program. And we went from selling $86,000 in to over $8 million in the first year.
Oh my God.
And
That's staggering.
and I raised the price. That was the thing. I actually raised the price up to $1,450 at the time.
Right.
And people who weren't buying were now suddenly buying. I mean, we were selling 400, we were pretty consistently selling between 450 and 550 of the units per month at that point.
Yeah.
And then we started, some months we had like 600 and something units, and like almost 700 units. And, it just took off. And it was just really because I looked at the metrics and I talked to the people and figured out what they wanted. That was the increase in that particular product set. So I had a lot of wins at that company. I took their
Wow.
close rates from 17.8% to 43.2% in 4 months. I helped the average coaching sale go from $1,500 a month, 6-month agreements to $2,500 a month, 12-month agreements.
Right.
I doubled the sales close rate on the front end of the sales team. Again, all looking at micro measurements and looking at metrics, and then just those tell a story. And you look at the story and you figure out what the story is, and then you figure out how to optimize that process. And that's really all I did.
Well, that's all you did, but I mean, it's brilliant. It's like to call people and say, why didn't you buy? Obviously, that's a lot to unpack alone right there. But the fact that you realize it's self-paced is like everyone knows you're going to buy this something and you're not going to do it if you don't have coaching. So that's
Right.
another brilliant add to that. And you've built over 35 businesses. Like, what's one thing you see founders and CEOs consistently missing when it comes to scaling revenue?
Well, there's a few things, but I'll start with, it's one thing that kind of entangles three things, if you
Okay.
will. So the first thing is they're not really clear about what they actually want to do in the business.
Right.
They think they are, but I'm talking truthfully,
Right.
right? So I get them super clear on what that truthful number is and why they want it.
Yeah.
And because most people overestimate what they want to do and they underestimate what they can do in a certain period of time. So we get that super clear. And then the second thing in tandem to that is we actually figure out the real numbers to achieve the goal. Most
Okay.
people have their math off, so they don't figure in things like, what is my return rate? What is my customer churn rate? What is my refund rate? What's the inflation rate this year going on? All these like little numbers, like factors. And then we
Yeah.
come up with the accurate number of sales that they've got to achieve in order to hit the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't figure these things in. And then what happens is, like, let's say for every 100 sales, they really need 127 sales. Well,
Right.
they're off, right? And then the third thing is, which it really is connected to these two, is we really got to get clear on who the ideal right fit buyer is.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
And then we apply the metrics and the numbers to those three criteria. And then we figure out what to measure. And, from there, it's just now let's look at the data and look at what's going on in the company and then optimize each and every point. And I think the biggest impediment to that, Lisa, is just patience, right? Because it's
Oh,
like,
that's hard. That's so hard for me. As a business owner, I mean, you just want what you want and you don't like have patience.
it usually takes between 2 and 6 months to start seeing really good progress. But, do you remember J. Conrad Levinson? He wrote a book series called Guerrilla Marketing. I don't know if you're
I
familiar.
remember the book. Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to get to know Jay, and I asked him one day. Now Jay is responsible for like icons like the Marlboro Man
Wow.
commercials, the Pillsbury Doughboy. He's the guy who actually worked on the team to do that, right? The Pillsbury Doughboy is still around today.
Wow.
And I asked Jay, I said, Jay, what's the number one challenge in marketing? And he said to me, patience. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, Doug, what people don't realize is it took us 2 years and $10 million to dial in the Marlboro Man.
Wow.
And, but once they did, you know, unfortunately for those people who don't like smoking, I'm one of those people. He dialed it in, right? And the same with the Pillsbury Doughboy. It wasn't like they put that cute little thing out there the moment one and it just took off. He was telling me, right? So, and so I asked him. I said, Jay, what do you think the number one challenge in sales is for people? And he said, follow up. 68% of sales are lost due to it.
Wow.
And I never forgot those two things. And so when I look at a business, I have to remember to remind the CEO or the business owner, look, we're going to get quick wins as much as we can, but you're really going to start to see the dial in, like that 4,152%, that took me it was just under 2 months before we launched it. And,
Yeah.
but they couldn't believe the numbers. The first number that came in, we sold, they were selling 8 a month on average. In our first month, we sold 108. And they
That's
were
incredible.
like, what the heck? And then the next month it doubled. And the next month it went up to 323 or 328. I'd have to look at the numbers. And then it just kept going, right? But it took us about 2 months to get it up and running. But by the 6th month, man, we were selling almost 500 units a month, right?
Yeah. Those
So,
numbers are staggering. That's why I was so excited for this conversation. I mean, I love your focus on the patience. Obviously, that's hard as an entrepreneur, and clarity and not knowing who your ideal client is better than you think, well, I know that, but just dialing that in. And then obviously the systems and the processes to all of that. And I'd love your focus on hiring commission-only sales teams. How do you build a team that's not just hungry, but they actually close?
well, you got to do the first 3 things first that we talked about, right? And those people are like, I know my ideal client, Harvard, HubSpot, Wharton School of Business, they've all done these studies and they all conclude the same thing. 97% of companies out there, in part or in full, don't know their ideal right fit buyer.
Yeah, that's great
So,
to know.
right. So, but once you get that in there, the biggest thing about, again, if we're not clear on the goal and we try to go out and hire commission only sales teams and we're not clear on the goal and we're not supporting that goal,
Yeah,
these commission only sales teams work on commission. So if they're not getting immediate sales coming through within a couple of weeks,
yeah,
they're going to leave, right? I mean, that's just the nature of a commission
yeah.
salesperson.
They're
So
hungry.
we've got to dial in what the team needs. But once we understand what the team needs and we understand what the company's looking for, excuse me, then it's really about creating the ideal job description. And when I mean that, I don't mean like, hey, top salesperson wanted. What I
Right.
mean is you got to tell them the good, the happy, the ugly, and the bad. And this is where a lot of people fail in hiring sales team members because they don't, like, top performers. They will wade through miles of sand on the beach to get to the goal, as long
Yeah,
as they know they've got to struggle to get there or not struggle to get there. You know what I mean? So people don't tell them the truth a lot of times, and then they end up losing the sales team. And I've got a company I'm working with right now, and I knew the leads were not dialed in. So the people that I brought on, I said, look, here's the reality. It's not ugly, but it's got a lot of blemishes on it right now. And we've got to work through these lead flow things to straighten these things out. So if you're going to come on to this team, understand that it's going to be bumpy for about 2 months.
wow.
And every one of them that's on this team is closing now, but it's been bumpy for we're on our 2nd month. It's still bumpy, right? But
Yeah,
they're still closing sales, and the owner's like, how are they, like, it's like you've got to tell them exactly. It's kind of like if you could go to match.com, take the tests, and then you sit in a room with an arbitrator and they say, listen, you tell the truth, he tells the truth, or right? And
right.
about what you want in your life, how you want it, what you don't like, what you do like, and I'll get all of that out on the table, and then, like, okay,
Yeah,
sign this, right? And this is the wedding decree, if you will.
I love
It's
that.
right?
I love that for
You got to
like,
do the same.
that's how I met my husband. I'm like, I would rather do the research on someone, find out if we want the same things, start with the end in mind. And I love that you set expectations. So you have systems, you're clear, you focus on clarity of what the goal is and what their expectation should be. This is gonna be a bumpy road. I love that. And in a high ticket world, what makes a closer elite? Like what separates a hustler from a real top 1% performer?
So once you have that job description, right,
Yeah,
you can create an ad specifically for that.
right.
And then it'll attract the right type of person. So if we're looking, for example, let's go back to Business Breakthroughs International, Tony Robbins, Chet Holmes. On the front end of our sales team, we would run radio ads that would then call in for a free report, and they would get a live person. And that live person, their job was to now sell them into a $229 paid 2.5 hour masterclass called back then, right?
Right.
Now imagine you're driving in New York City in mass traffic and you've got to take your credit card out and give it to somebody who you don't even know.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of pushback on that, right?
Right.
Right. So we look at different traits. Can they handle that type of thing? So do they have the ego strength? And I don't mean arrogance. I mean self-confidence. Are they able to handle resistance?
Right.
And so we measure for those things. And, in that case, in the front end, I needed somebody with extremely high ego strength and
Yeah.
also, though, maintained empathy, could relate. Yeah, I know. Oh, man, traffic's bad. It's raining. It's snowing, whatever, right? You got to be able to do
Yeah.
both of those. Now, on a coaching team, for example, I wanted about equal empathy and equal ego strength because I wanted somebody who's going to be very nurturing because that's what makes a good coach, but also
Yeah.
strong enough to ask the right questions and to get the eyebrows to go up and say to them, listen, if you don't do this, this is you. You know what I mean? Like that, it's that type of thing. So you get real clear on the job description, and then you get very clear on the profile of the person that you want. Then you
Yeah.
run the ad for that.
For
And
that
you
exact
Hmm?
high performer salesperson.
Yeah. Well, there's an ad called the Shackleton ad, Lisa, that's Ernest Shackleton was putting an expedition to, I think, Antarctica, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And he wrote in the ad basically these words, you know, men wanted who want to basically change the world, you know, uh, success unlikely, death likely.
Wow.
Right? You can look up the ad, right? and and he got tons of applicants, right? They knew they were going to sail into the ice and that they, perilous journey on, unknown exploration, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And they made it. I mean, they didn't have a good time. They actually got stuck and, almost starved to death. But the point being is he was attracting the right type of caliber person because he was clear on the front end. And then in sales, we got to do the same thing. And a lot of people don't. There is one other caveat to it, this in sales too. We've got to have a structured interview that asks all the
Yeah.
same questions to everyone,
Yeah. To see who
because
the
then we can
winners
lead
are
score it.
gonna like who the real winners are gonna be.
Yeah, but it's truthful lead scoring at that point, right? So a lot of times they'll interview people and they go, man, he was or she was so likable. I bet they'd be great in sales. And it's like, not really.
Yeah. That's
They
only
have
one
super
part of it, you're saying, the likability.
right. So hiring off a gut instinct is only going to probably get you a 10 to 15% accuracy,
Right.
right? And so can they handle the job? Like if we wanted, think of it if we were owned a professional sporting team, like I don't know, pick do you like sports? We never talked about.
Lakers. I'll take the Lakers.
Okay, so basketball, right?
Yeah.
Now, if we really want somebody who can hit 3-point shots all the time, like 90% plus,
Yeah.
we want to hire for that position. We don't want that person driving for the net every single time. We want 3 points. We don't want two.
Wow.
right? It's a different type of athlete, right? You don't necessarily have to be as tall to
Yeah.
be able to do that, right? So you can like, if you can hit it from half court, man, what do you, how, you could be my height and I'd still be successful if I could do that, right? Which I
Yeah.
can't, but the people who can. Now, if you want somebody who's going to be able to drive to the net and be able to, pull a foul, get a foul every time, right? So they can get a 1 point or a 2 point shot after they sink the ball,
Yeah.
then you've got to have a different profile person. Those two profiles I have never measured, but I suspect are very different when you measure those, even using assessment type processes.
Wow. I
And
love that. I mean, it's like the same. So you're looking for a specific thing, whether you're driving 3 points or you're closing ratios are good, and
mhm.
and you systematize everything. So final questions. I know we've come such a long way from radio ads. And so what are you seeing in 2025 sales trends, especially AI and buying
Oh yeah.
psychology shifts? Well, obviously we all have this compressed attention span these days.
We do. So the thing that's going to be in demand for any type of sales role or even a business owner who has a sales team, emotional, connection
Yeah.
is going to get higher. The skill set for that is more needed now than ever. They'll
Yeah.
call it emotional, IQ, EQ, different ones. But that's something that AI is not good at all.
Right.
And the second thing is we have to be very understanding that AI, it's not going away. It is changing the landscape of how we are going to be selling, just as back in 1999, I said this to my sales team. I said,
Yeah.
this thing, DSL, digital subscriber line, fast speed internet. And,
Yeah.
and compared to today, it's a snail's slow pace. But back then it was like, wow, we got 128 megabytes, right? And I said, this is going to change how we sell forever. And I had a lot of owners of companies and said, you're crazy. And I said, no, think about this. They can go online and learn what we're now coming in to be the expert for as the sales channel. They
Yeah.
rely on us now, but they're not going to rely on us forever because this encyclopedia online is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, hence Google, right?
Yeah.
And
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 chat
so
GPT, et cetera.
yeah, and so the reality is they're going to know more about what we know more about. And I predict in time they'll even know more about it than even we do as the sales channel.
Right.
Here we are, right? So it's AI is going to do the same thing. And what it's going to do is it's going to take a lot of repetitive tasks that we do. And it's just going to make the point of doing them still important, but the process of doing that routine.
So much easier. I agree.
Yeah. And if we don't embrace it, I mean, we just created a website this morning for a new initiative. It
Yep.
took literally 30 seconds to create the website and then another 30 minutes to adjust the website.
That's incredible compared to how long it used to take would be what, like months and months and
Yeah, yeah, and tens of thousands of dollars, right?
that's
We
incredible,
created
Doug.
it's $25 a month for this particular AI program to do, and it looks great and it's amazing. And lead generation, setting appointments, all of that is going to get done with AI.
Oh yeah.
And so, if you're a setter today and you're like, oh, I'm comfortable, right? No, you're in the same place that person who said to their son or daughter, hey, learn how to repair this steam engine and you'll have a great lifetime of job security. If you're a setter today, you're gonna, not all setters, but most of that can get liquid. It already is. And I'm a guy who's actually investigating on how to help do that, right? So I can tell the people that this is what's happening, not because I'm mean or I want to put people out of work. It's just another iteration of technology.
Wow.
Uber did a number on the cab system, And it's just another, generation of something that happened, and the cabs industry got decimated by it. And now, but it opened up all kinds of opportunity for other people who want to earn a living driving other people around.
Yeah. I
Right.
mean, so in other words, we got to like stay up with the times, and it doesn't replace you because it's like the AI and the human together. Like if it didn't have the brain of Doug C. Brown, that website wouldn't have been built that quickly. So
No,
don't
never.
sell yourself short.
No, I have a gentleman I know who has spent darn close to $500,000 putting a software product together. And I was just demonstrating this to my wife last night. It took me about 22 minutes, and I pretty much have done everything that he has on his website using ChatGPT and a couple other AI programs.
That's
And
incredible.
this is what's happening. And if people don't pay attention to look, I just talked to somebody that in the construction industry, they're actually looking at AI on how to build decks on homes.
Yeah.
Right. So Sears did this years ago. You could buy a home in a catalog,
Yeah.
and they would
Amazing.
ship it to the house, right? And then
Yeah.
you put it together. Well, that's what's happening too. AI is, here's the custom perfect deck, and it's getting built, and then they're taking the deck and they're just bringing it to the house, and in one day, bam, your deck's up.
Oh my gosh. Well, so CEO sales, Doug C. Brown, like let's say people want to get a hold of you. Where can people find more of you? Because I could talk to you all day, but I know you're a busy person.
Well, I appreciate you having me here and getting to know you and your audience. And if they want to know more about me, they can, if they type in Doug C. Brown revenue growth or whatever, I'll be everywhere. Not arrogant. It's just I am everywhere on the, first 10 pages probably anyways. And if they want to know more about me, Doug Brown 123 is my LinkedIn. They can check out ceosalesstrategies.com. That is our website. If they want to talk to me directly, reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. And we also, there's a couple things we have. I've got a book that I specifically wrote on the psychology and philosophy of sales objections, because it's one of the things that people don't know how to handle. They can get that at winwinsellingbook.com. And we have a masterclass we run every single month that's free. The next one is called ceosalesstrategies.com/stop the leak. And we're teaching one thing that can literally put 5 to 20% revenue back in a company. And it costs little to nothing to do, but most people are really doing a poor job at it.
Well, thank you for being a fantastic guest on WholeCEO with Lisa G.
Lisa, so again, thank you for having me. I'm very, very appreciative and grateful.